Zombie Spider-Man. Zombie Spider-Man becomes a horrifying variant after an infection consumes him. The hunger triggered from Colonel America's bite takes over fast, and Peter Parker ends up eating Mary Jane, then Aunt May, inside the same apartment where he swore to protect them. The guilt doesn't slow him down. Peter tears through the Sinister Six, fighting against the likes of Dr. Octopus, Electro, Vulture, Mysterio, and Kraven. He devours J. Jonah Jameson and openly enjoys it. During a frenzy over Magneto, he joins the pack, tearing the villain apart, and afterward, the sight of what he did leaves him disgusted with himself. Yet, the disgust never stops him from doing it again. The transformation takes a toll on his body as well. His lips rot off, his skin turns gray, and after losing his webbing, he starts firing his own veins and arteries out of his wrists instead. Shame over his own face pushes him to keep wearing his torn mask, and at his lowest point, he peels the skin off his body entirely and throws it in the trash. Even his attempts at doing good turn violent when he accidentally infects the Sinister Six on another Earth, unleashing an even worse massacre than the one on his own. The Spider. The Spider racks up a criminal record of 67 consecutive life sentences because of his murderous lifestyle. When the Carnage symbiote bonds with him, this already evil being turns into an unstoppable psychopath. A team called Weapon X, which is built to carry out impossible missions, recruits him anyway, and the Spider's adventures only get darker from there. He helps massacre an entire underground-dwelling Morlock population, ignites a war between Atlantis and the Inhumans, and blows up Avengers Mansion along with the rest of his team, including Tony Stark. The Spider doesn't have any morality holding him back, and this shows when he agrees to eliminate a young boy named David. But eventually, his violence catches up with him when Firestar burns him down with a full blast of her powers, ending a killing spree that spanned two separate realities. Patton Parnell. Patton Parnell turns Spider-Man's whole philosophy inside out. Where every other Peter learns that power demands responsibility, Patton believes it demands appetite, and he acts on that belief with terrific speed. Days after his spider bite, he's already eating a live mouse, then a neighborhood cat, then ultimately his own abusive Uncle Ted. His bedroom becomes a feeding lair strung with webbing, and he starts hauling in human prey like a school bully and a boy searching for his lost dog. His cruelty peaks when he attacks his neighbor Sarah Jane, sinking his fangs into her neck and pumping her full of spider eggs that hatch inside her body. Dark Spider-Man. Dark Spider-Man never actually earns the hero suit he gets to wear. Instead, Mac Gargan is handed the Spider-Man identity by Norman Osborn as pure propaganda. But the issue is that nobody could keep Gargan on a leash for long. Even while playing the part of a public hero, he develops a habit of maiming small-time criminals and eating parts of them on the spot, then keeping whatever cash they were carrying for himself. After beating down a bank robber called General Wolfram, he drags him onto a rooftop and eats his arm, then spends Wolfram's stolen money at a strip club that same night. He goes even lower and kills the stripper and dumps her body in J. Jonah Jameson's bed, trying to frame the newspaper publisher who spent years criticizing Spider-Man for murder. Around the same stretch, he starts stirring up gang wars across the city, using the Spider-Man name to do it. Eventually, the criminals he's annoyed over the months band together and come after him at once. Gargan wins anyway, and the NYPD publicly praises him for it, which somehow makes the whole thing more disturbing. Spider Lizard. Spider Lizard emerges after an experiment meant to cure Curt Connors goes catastrophically wrong. The Innervator, a device which was being used to revert Curtis, malfunctions and blasts Peter instead. As the dangerous rays from this device hit Peter, he becomes increasingly aggressive. His crime fighting turns brutal, and during a confrontation with Schizoid Man or Chip Martin, Peter almost beats the disturbed villain to death. As his rage gets out of hand, it triggers a transformation which ends up combining Spider-Man's abilities with the lizard's reptilian physiology. Now that it's armed with much better strength, savage instincts, and most importantly bulletproof scales, Spider-Lizard tears through the city on a violent rampage. With Peter completely under the influence and nothing being available to stop him, Curt Connors develops an antidote as the only remaining solution. Once it gets administered, the reptilian transformation is successfully reversed and further damage is stopped. Wolf Spider. Wolf Spider is one of the most malicious variants in the multiverse. Somewhere in Earth 16,827, Peter Parker gets his powers and decides heroism is a pathetic joke worth killing for. He hunts down everyone who stands for heroism in his world one by one, and when he gets to his own Miles Morales, he doesn't hesitate for a second. Then a broken shard of the Siege Perilous, which is a mystical artifact capable of opening pathways between realities, lands in his lap, and suddenly Peter realizes his world was never the only one. Countless other Peters are out there, still playing heroes and still believing in the whole great responsibility thing. So he sets out to absorb every last one of them, draining their life force until only one true Spider-Man is left standing, and it's going to be him. Along the way, he lies his way into an alliance with another tyrannical ruler, the Lizard King. He plays along just long enough to use him and vanish. To Wolf Spider, every ally becomes a tool, and every hero becomes a target. Poison. Poison Spider-Man starts as a rebirth story, but tragically spirals into a cold-blooded hijacking of Peter's soul. Peter Parker gets cocooned by the living embodiment of his own spider powers and is offered a fresh, symbiote-free start. Instead of accepting the offer, Peter rips its head clean off and refuses to change, leaving his transformation half-finished and his body wide open. That's when the old Venom symbiote finds him, abandons its current host, Matt Gargan, without a second thought, and pours itself into the gap. Then what crawls out of that cocoon isn't really Peter anymore. Poison breaks into Stark Tower to confront Aunt May and Mary Jane, casually offering to bond MJ to a symbiote spawn so they can be together forever. Wolverine and Luke Cage try to stop him and get taken apart in seconds. It was so bad that Cage was left paralyzed by a stinger straight to the shoulder. And when Poison isn't terrorizing the living, he's digging up Gwen Stacy's grave to bond her corpse with a symbiote, building himself a monstrous new companion out of a woman who should have stayed buried. Spider-Man. Spider-Man is quite literally a swarm of radioactive spiders wearing Peter Parker's memories. He comes into existence when the spider colony devours the real Peter during a lab accident, and instead of killing him, it absorbs his mind, keeping just enough of him intact to walk around in his skin. Everything underneath stays perpetually hungry. When the Inheritors, a family of vampires who hunt spider people across the multiverse, show up hunting their next spider totem, Spider-Man wonders out loud what they'll taste like once they're dead. That same hunger doesn't spare his own kind. He looks at a younger, fully human Peter Parker standing right next to him and calls him a veal. When one of the Inheritors, Karn's corpse, hits the floor, nobody is surprised that Spider-Man doesn't hold himself back. He just sicks his own colony of spiders on the body and lets them devour it whole. He joins hands with an alternate Norman Osborn, helping him sacrifice an entire Earth. And before it's over, he scattered thousands of his own spiders across other realities to spy and manipulate from the shadows. Symbiote Spider-Man. Symbiote Spider-Man isn't as evil in the beginning, but the suit gradually chips away at his morality. The alien costume gradually influences Peter, making him more aggressive and allowing the symbiote to take control of his body while he sleeps. In Spider-Man 3, that influence turns him into a smug bully who ends up striking Mary Jane during an argument. On the other hand, the alternate comic, Spider's Shadow, takes it much further. After Hobgoblin kills Aunt May, Peter never takes the suit off again, and this grief turns straight into a killing spree. He murders Hobgoblin first, then works his way through Shocker, Scorpion, and eventually the Kingpin. Ghost Spider. Ghost Spider lives a seemingly perfect life. On Earth 11,638, Peter Parker never loses Uncle Ben, and that's the problem. Instead of teaching him responsibility, Ben pushes his nephew toward power, helping him build a portal that pulls Spider-Man in from other realities. Peter drags them back to his lair, the web, and straps them into a machine that drains their life force straight out of their bodies, using it to make himself stronger with every new victim. By the time he lures in the Earth 616 Spider-Man, he's already burned through enough alternate Peters that most of his own world's villains have given up fighting him. Only a direct confrontation forces him to see what he's become, and the guilt sends his spirit straight to hell. After making a deal, he returns as the Ghost Spider, a Ghost Rider-style Avenger, but the damage from years of feeding on his own counterparts is already done.